Okay, hello everyone, and this is Kristen, and welcome to PokeWord broadcast. It's very happy that we can have a polemic and 265 Dots with us today to touch on the topic about the sentiment about Polkadot, because the the dot is regaining a confidence from the investors and institutions based on different factors. And I think it's a good time to talk about it. And the polemic and the 265 dots are, experts in this field. So it's happy to have you guys with us today. So first of all, I think I would like to invite every guest to introduce yourself and your project a little bit to set a context for our conversation. How about we start from Flavio?
Sure. Flavio here. So I'm basically responsible for marketing and also BD team at Polymech, part of the Foundation Council. Polymech, as some of you might know, is a Polkadot parachain, and we are focused on primary market transactions. So specifically, ICOs, pre-TGs, and primary market opportunities. We've been in the ecosystem for quite a while, so we know how ways here. Yeah, Luca, you can introduce yourself, I guess.
Yeah, and very welcome. I think the work you've been doing is what the retail investors love most. Okay, now let's welcome Wilhelm.
Hi, and thank you for having me, Kirsten. Pleasure to join you. The CEO of 265 Dots. Our main focus is with institutional parties, primarily financial institutions, and their adoption of DOT and the DOT ecosystem. Our project started relatively new at the start of the year, and it's our mission to attract as much institutional capital to the DOT ecosystem.
Yeah, amazing. Because we all want to attract the institution monies into the Web3, and many people are, but the regulatory and the phenomenon maybe is not right. But I think this is the right time for this, and you are here, so we are lucky to have you in Polkadot ecosystem. So last but not least, let's welcome Luca.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Pleasure to be on as always. So from my side, I'm the co-founder and in the Foundation Council at Polymech. My name is Luca von Wittenbach. And as Flavio mentioned, we're focusing on pre-TGE rounds. Now he mentioned that we were very active in the Polkadot ecosystem, but are also launching our solution soon to enable permissionless funding rounds for EVM-based chains. Happily covering that thereafter as well, but we're leveraging the power of enabling a much broader horizon and investment field for investors of pre-TGE rounds, of also enabling it for other chains such as Polygon, Optimism, Arbitrum, Avalanche, MegaETH, and the likes to leverage the EVM compatibility.
Oh, cool. We have more possibilities for investing. And let's welcome everyone, and let's dive right into our topic. And the first topic I want to talk about the vibe. Actually, I want to talk this is because of Flavio. His title is Chief Vibe Officer. This is the first time I've seen this title. And it is true that in blockchain, vibe is an unspoken energy that it attracts specific communities and true believers. So why not start from Flavia to tell us why how the idea came about and what kind of vibe you are hoping to create.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought it was funny when you sent the question. So basically, I think my inspiration initially came from Limo, because he calls himself Chief Nice Officer.
Nice.
Well, I can be nice, but not always. So I was like, maybe it's more a bit of a vibe. The way I describe vibes is in general the perception and how you sort of perceive the energy from the ecosystem, from the community, also from projects building and excitement. And in the end, what led me also into crypto is that it is a very specific ecosystem, or let's say a group of people that are able to deliver a lot of things very fast, and they explore and they sometimes are happy, sometimes not. But I think it's always about creating a positive environment, because in the end what we're doing is we're creating innovation, we're pushing the boundaries, and if you do it without having fun, then why bother doing it? So for me, vibes is the most important thing, because you can literally have the amazing tech and amazing projects, but if the vibe is off, then you just lose at least my interest, and I would also argue the interest of a lot of other people. So my job is to keep the vibes high. I'm a bit of the personality higher, I guess. But that's what I understand on the vibes.
Yeah, cool. Next is for Wilhelm, and talking about vibe, and I think the vibe between traditional institution and Web3, they're totally different. So how do you manage to bring them together and to push the cooperation?
Well, I think that actually vibe is what attracts a lot of people with TradFi background to Web3, right? I mean, we might not call it vibe, we might call it noise, for example. But at the end, you have vibe in TradFi as well, right? I mean, the brilliant stuff that Web3 brings is that, first of all, you can express yourself a bit more, you can be a bit more direct, you can engage more capably than you might have in TradFi. But I think that this is something that is pretty much just a translation item, probably, that for us to translate vibe to noise in TradFi and noise to vibe back to Web3.
Oh, okay. So is there some very common interest you could find that so these two group of people can, both of them want to cooperate?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think that if you're putting yourself in maybe your traditional hedge fund hat, you're looking for as many opportunities you can get. And if you go and meet with parties like Polymac, let's say Magenta Capital, Velocity Labs, and other parties within Web3, then yeah, that to a degree they're vibe, if I keep to the title of it, is very much something that can lock them in. And maybe to mention a little bit, as I referred before, it's very much kind of a translation, I think, item, because if you're looking for liquidity in TradFi, I think it will sound very similar to anyone in Web3. It might materialize differently, but it's about the same. If you look at flow, you look at it the same within TradFi as well as within Web3. Again, it might change a little, but it tends to be the same. But everyone within the two sides are opportunity seeker. They're very much looking at the bottom line of their portfolios, and primarily they want to vibe afterwards as well. So.
Yeah. So what attracted you to Polkadot?
Well, I think a few main items. So first of all, Polkadot didn't just come in front of my radar yesterday. So I followed Dot quite a while ago. Actually, one of the people that first brought it to my eyes is sitting around us in this panel. And so it has been something I followed for a while. If I put my TradFi hat on a bit more, for me, Polkadot is a centerpiece for infrastructure. And if I look like a larger manager, let's say a sovereign fund or a pension fund or the BlackRocks and Vanguards of the ecosystem, Polkadot
Yes.
plays a pivotal part in the grand Web3 ecosystem. And then adding to that, as I mentioned, the seeking of opportunities, you also find Polkadot in a stage that it's kind of finding its voice and amplifying its voice.
Mhm.
And in it, you get a solid technology, an unpivoted track record, a great development team, and now just the boost of the noise, which again is not always the hardest thing to do, and it's just up to us at the end, right? To an extent. So it falls on those three main criteria.
Yeah, cool. And when you talk to the traditional institutions, do they know about Polkadot, or the most thing they know about is Bitcoin?
Well, I always like to be brutally honest. So yes, Bitcoin is naturally the first thing that for most of them comes to mind. But I think there'll be quite a surprise if you go to deep tech VCs. Polkadot has been something that's been on their eyesight for a while. We had talks with some pension funds, and Polkadot has been on their view as well. But if you're asking them, can you explain to me what a gem is? Yeah, that's
No.
a bit of a demand. So I think that Polkadot as an asset class earned its place with its reputation for a lot of those managers. It requires some dusting of knowledge, but Polkadot is definitely there. At least for us as 265 Dots, our mission is to amplify that noise and then to drive it to execution to adopt Dot. So
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, good to know. And it's interesting that when Gavin visited China in the early 2025, a friend sent me a message and asked me, can I buy Gem token? So I think there's a lot of work to do on both of our side. Thank you, Wilhelm. Now, this is for Lucas, because Polemic is a platform for investors, and so does Polemic aim to compatible with different types of vibes? I think you have to, right? And what kind of a vibe are you mostly eager to attract right now, and how will you bring those people into Polemic ecosystem?
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. I just really like the discussion about the vibing. So looking at the vibe, I think I will add on to the points Flavio mentioned, kind of about the culture part in Web3, connected with what Wilhelm mentioned of it's not such a big difference between TradFi and DeFi. So what we do at Polymech is that we basically offer you a series of opportunities that you can invest in. Now with the EVM expansion, we have a much broader horizon, so we have a bigger offering. If we look a couple of years back in crypto, it was much, much stronger in the maximalism. So you had a lot of people and believers that if a deal comes up, but it's not in my ecosystem, then I'm not interested in. Now the market has matured significantly where people are much more open-minded. And this is also why I would say TradFi and DeFi is much closer aligned, because they're looking for investment opportunities independent on which chain it is. So they're actually looking at something that has a business case, has a product market fit, has an upside, and has a strong deliverable team behind it. And this is how they value the opportunities. So looking at the vibe that we attract is basically from a TradFi as well as from a DeFi angle. There's nothing else that is more important than a high quality deal. It's not about the amount of deals that you show. They have to be high quality for them to be interesting. Additionally, on the wide-wing part is, of course, that the usage of an application, the days are over where it's cool to do crypto. It's not cool anymore to do an on-chain transaction and telling my friends that has never used a wallet to set up a wallet, because he will look at me and be like, hey, why do I need all these words? And why do I need to write them down on a piece of paper? And why do I have to keep them secure? Yes, in 2016, 2017, it felt novel. It felt cool to maybe do it once or twice. Now it's more of a hassle and a pain rather than an added value, right? So you really need to make the application as simple as possible and erase all these frictions. And to do that in a very proper way, these things take time. So you need to get the end user what he wants, and what the end users want is they don't want to see a wallet. So slowly passkeys are coming, so the end user can log in with an email or with a Google ID or with an Apple ID. These are things that the end user wants. And we need to give the end users what they want. Same thing as you need to make the entire flow as simple as possible. And then maybe to add on the vibing part, they do like some animations potentially or some cooler web pages, that of course, to make it a little bit more attractive, I think. And again, that's not only a Web3 thing. TradFi investors like that a lot as well, to be entertained with visually appealing web pages in the end.
Yeah. So, Polymic make it very easier for people who are using the background to access to the investment, right? I think it's more possible on European. Do you think the environment in European helps you a lot for these applications?
I think from the application side of things, we don't see a big difference. We see a huge difference in the approach of projects dependent on jurisdictions they're coming from. What we see is in the Asian markets, they're always leading with perfect visualizations, perfect demos, and perfect front ends, where what we see from the European market is usually the opposite, where they have very weak and lacking communities, not the best front ends, and they figured out a very stellar tech in the background. And what we see from the American market, and sometimes, or coming now from the Middle Eastern part as well, we see the strongest sales teams on the distribution side of things. And in the end, the winning product has to combine all three areas. Nevertheless, what we clearly see in the market is distribution is key and sales force is key.
Wow, cool. So it's a lot of work to do. Okay, now let's move our topic to the investment climate, because when I think everyone is following about the news, and the stablecoin news now is everywhere in the media. So the Genius Act, and for the Hong Kong stablecoin regulation, and I've seen some big projects already switch their direction to focus on for the stablecoin. And one of the big giant in China, and Jingdong, I'm not sure you know it or not, and they announced to apply for the stablecoin regulation licenses. So I think it's the stablecoin actions, I think, create a very positive environment for crypto industry. And so I want to touch on this topic specifically. First, for Flavio, and this is a very difficult question, I think, but I will.
Thank you.
Because I talked to you, I heard your talk in Hong Kong. I think you have your own opinions. So I really want to hear your perspective on this. Do you think how do you view these stablecoin policies, and do you see them as progress or step backward for blockchain? I ask this question because Gavin conducted an interview, and he mentioned stablecoin are fundamentally centralized, that runs counter to the core Web3 values. So what's your take on this?
Well, Luca might start laughing, but I like to call myself a realistic person. And I believe, I think stablecoin adoption is one of the key drivers for our industry right now. I saw a very, short interview of Paolo from Tether, and I think he makes some very good points in the sense that it's a game changer for developing markets, right? Where you are able to really save a big margin on transactions and actually accessibility to a stable currency that you don't have before. So I think for that, it's definitely a positive. I think regulation in general is like politics. It's like if there's too much, it's too much. If it's too much to one side or to the other, it's always sort of bad. You don't want no regulation, but also you don't want to be over-regulated. So I feel like it's always good to have some boundaries and to find, a common ground of regulation, especially because, I mean, the purpose of regulation is investor protection. But, sometimes you don't protect investors, but rather just, deny an entire industry, which is also not the right approach, in my opinion. If we talk about, is it centralized? Yes, of course. Do I care? No, I don't. Why not? Well, because it's a solution to a problem that we have right now. I'm not an idealistic person. I don't think we will achieve Web3 in one go, and we should, abolish everything else. I think it's very pragmatic. It provides a solution to a problem that we have. It provides liquidity. Do we have the counterparty risk and the exposure? Yes, we are very aware. Everyone is aware of this. But sometimes you just need to work with the tools you have to achieve a certain solid foundation, and then be able to go more into the aspect of decentralization and Web3, and not the other way around, right? So it's like you don't build something just for the sake of it, or make it decentralized for the sake of it, so you can tell everyone it's decentralized. If there's no purpose to it, or if there are problems you can solve by having a centralized objective or counterparty, then that's how it works. I mean, look at TradFi. TradFi is very efficient because it is centralized, and decentralization itself, per definition, is inefficient. So I feel like I don't mind that we have Tether. It would kind of suck without them, and we would never have pumped the market so hard. So I feel like I'm not too worried about it.
Yes. Even though it counters the Web3 value, but it really makes our life much more easier. And when the regulation approved.
Yeah, well, values I feel like are important, and I think it's important to thrive towards the Web3 value, but it's also important to understand that, Rome wasn't built in a day. You cannot just abolish everything else and focus on this one mission. You need to understand that you run a business and not a charity, and for that you need to have the right components and the right partners, and it's not just going to be the Web3 vibe all the time, unfortunately.
Yes, but we also have a Bitcoin. Maybe can it's also be regulated in a lot of countries. It will make up the stable coins for decentralization.
Yeah, let's see the digital gold, right? I mean, the narrative of Bitcoin changed so many times. I don't even know anymore what the latest one is. As long as people keep buying, I guess we'll be fine. And as long as MicroStrategy doesn't default, I can sleep well.
Yeah, and true. And let's move to Wilhelm. And I'm interested to know because I think the stablecoin regulation can help the traditional institutions to move money into the Web3. It's much easier for them to transit from fiat to crypto, right? So I wonder, how much capital inflow do you expect as a result of this stablecoin policy? And
yeah, I mean, maybe connecting to what Flavio said at the end, Rome wasn't built in a day, and there's many ways to get to Rome. So stablecoin is one of those roads that gets you to Rome. And I think that in this, it conveys on top of it a lot of institutional parties, because with stablecoins, at least you get a lot of comfort with the custodial parties that are able to better protect you. You get trading houses that know how to better assess their flow, how to use it as a hedge. So at the end, it's a support mechanism. It's part of a wider, the road system that leads you to kind of an integrated end vision for Web3 in the future. And for regulators, again, it's kind of keep it simple, stupid, as the Americans would say. If it's something that they can wrap their head around it, they can approach it, they can license it, then you get a point that if they open the door, institutions open the door, they build a mandate for it, the mandate is there, and we are there right after. So that gives quite a lot of a good support wind behind our sails to push forward. So I see it as quite a positive thing.
Okay. Also, are there any institutional players you are currently in touch with, who are showing interest in investing in Polkadot?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, different colors of institutions. I mean, from small managers that have a bit more flexibility to larger institutions, some more on the trading side, others are more on the banking or broker banking side. So I think, yes, I think the days that you would ask yourself, do I want to invest into crypto or into A or B token, are behind us. The days of thinking, do I want to invest in fund A or fund B, are behind us. We're entering into this field where the demand is there. Regulations are more open. I think we see it very much with the acceptance of ETFs and ETPs per se, also for Polkadot throughout Europe, but also in the States now. And it's I think the big pockets are opening, but I would carve expectation that it happens in a day. Just to have a scope. If you talk to an investment committee of a small hedge fund, it can take them to make a decision about a week to a month. If you go to an institution, so the higher it gets, they need to go through many layers of kind of de-risking their choices until they come to a full mandated decision to deploy, even not even to make the decision. So I think that Polkadot always had a very good strategic breadth, and it's good to keep in mind that the interest is there, and we need to keep our breath still going a bit longer. We're pretty much around the corner.
Yeah, I think the traditional institutions, it took a long time for them to make decisions, right? And but do they have but do you see them much more as many do you see the many more are have plans to be, I want to say that before they don't have plans, and after the stablecoin regulation, and they have set up their plans to for the share of Polkadot and or for the share of Web3.
Yeah, so I think, and correct me if I'm getting the question wrong, but I think that in principle, we've seen a few waves that influence institutions to take a look and decide on a mandate how they enter with this thing called crypto. And first of all, it came with Bitcoin, then altcoins, then that created the initial interest. We've seen a lot of light regime, which is pre-licensed state by regulators worldwide, to open the first doors, and the starting of actual understanding and building of mandates from small to larger parties. Stablecoins definitely helps a lot, because a lot of institutions, even if they don't publicly say that they have some crypto, they definitely have some stablecoins. And if they don't have stablecoins, in some cases, they are already in sandbox environment to build their own stablecoins, like JP Morgan did, like a few other banking, primarily private banking and wholesale banking, are looking to do. And I think that that door is definitely open also for Polkadot naturally. But again, these decisions are not happening in heartbeat. Every support that we can get from either regulator, but also from our own ecosystem, right? The more mature we are, the more able we are to translate our jargon back to those institutions, the better we faster in the security that they feel. Flavio touched very well on it before. At the end, there's a balance, right? A balance between kind of freedom and safety. And you need to be somewhere in between that. For an institution, safety is the highest importance. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, freedom is the highest importance, right? And then you don't want to strangle innovation on behalf of the entrepreneur, but you also don't want to create a secure deficiency to the institution to come in. So long answer short, yes, I think institutions will definitely come in, stables give it a good support, and Polkadot, I think, is still quite there in the focus for a lot of.
Yeah, good to hear. And now let's move to Lucas. And what benefits does this stablecoin policies bring to Polemic growth? And the on-off ramps become more accessible, and are you seeing more countries opening up and more traditional partners forming?
Yeah, I think this can be summarized a little bit with the regulation that is coming. I think this is a very positive change for the TradFi environment overall. It gives institutions more clarity how to treat these assets. You want to have less uncertainty and the proper rule set. Are you allowed to hold crypto on your balance sheet? What are the rules and regulations? And to have that clear guidance for the Stablecoin Act opens a lot of doors. Now, as Wilhelm has mentioned, the larger the institution, the longer the time until something will happen. But that's not to twist that it's not happening. So these institutions are not here yet with a new service offering that is already in the market and is launched. Nevertheless, they kickstarted their processes internally. And that usually takes anything in between 6 to 12 or 24 months until such an offering comes to the market. But the perception is very, very critical. Not only does it give investors confidence to the asset class, because there's a proper regulation, it also enables companies to use or work with stablecoins under the given framework. And that is also essential, that what you touched with on and off ramps, that there will for sure be additional providers that can conquer the market, because it's still a highly fragmented market in crypto. There are a lot of various providers, but it's not yet covered. We have USDT and USDC, and I think the USDC minting mechanism is fantastic, also the USDT redemption mechanism, but it's not tailored for every need. And this is a very, very large market for various protocols, and there are ongoing new players that are coming in with a better product offering and with cheaper fees that are competing for the market share. So I think this is a very, very positive shift overall, which enables a protocol like ours to invest, to make it simpler for an investor to access stablecoins, to get these stablecoins cheaper. And it gives traditional investors also kind of a security how the asset is treated. So they're not afraid of using stablecoins, or at least certain stablecoins. Okay.
How much cheaper can it make?
Significantly would be my personal opinion. There are several providers that still, from my personal opinion, have ridiculous spreads and fee models in, which is understandable because not every provider has enough flow and they need to cover their revenue with business expenses. Nevertheless, the larger you can scale it with a clear regulatory guidance, and the more jurisdictions you are allowed to offer that product offering in, the lower the fees can get. And the larger the stablecoin market becomes, the more lucrative it actually is for an institution. As Wilhelm said, they're already having the JP Morgan coin. They start to use it, or they're testing it internally since a while. We have Kinexys, the private blockchain JP Morgan is using since, I think, 3 or 4 years already. And if I'm not mistaken, they've done $2 trillion in settlement already in the volume. So we're talking tremendous sizes. And just because they're not live with a blockchain or with certain use cases doesn't mean they're testing it and using it internally since 3 to 4 years nonstop. And once the market is there, then the offering can become significantly cheaper, because if you can conquer the entire market by going cheaper in a spread, you can still monetize a lot of it, which is a very lucrative business model.
I think the USDC on Polkadot Hub gonna be incentivized by hydration and for the integration to the centralized exchanges, and I think that's gonna help the adoption of a stablecoin in Polkadot as well.
Yeah, that's going to be a very interesting one. I'm gonna check the rates, but the incentivization mechanism is certainly something where there will be an interesting yield that can be gathered by providing liquidity with the stablecoins.
It's also the adoption, right? I mean, if you look For example, on Polymac, you can even pay gas fees with stablecoins, right?
Wow.
So the more adoption we have and the more choices we are able to give to users, to investors, the better. So we need overall more adoption of this, fee abstraction in general. I think, fiat and on and off ramps have been mentioned, which is still huge pain, right? If you want to onboard fiat, it takes you like 24 hours at least, and sometimes longer because the funds get in and then you only have a certain period they need to sit there. So I think in general, the bridging between TradFi and DeFi is getting more efficient. It's getting cheaper. It's also something we focus on very much because we are also aiming to attack TradFi very much in different ways. You will see soon. But this is huge and this is important. Incentivization campaigns are great, of course, but that's not where it should end.
Cool. When normal users pay by stable coins, they know they're using stable coins. I'm seeing is that some payment they covered by the stable coin will be exchanged behind the scene.
Yes. So you have stable coins, let's say USDT. You pay the fee equivalent in USDT that is deducted from your transaction. And in the background, it is swapped against DOT, basically, right? But you don't care as a user, right? Because the less I need to do, the better. There's only like a handful of people that really care. In the end, if it's cheaper, faster, and I don't need to worry about it, then I will definitely do it.
Yes, good. And there's another topic that market sanctioned about this whole market. There's a lot of positive policies, but I think it's only keeps Bitcoin very strong, and everything else is very fluctuate, especially for confidence. So, what's your take for this phenomenon, and more specifically, and how would you see the current level of confidence in Polkadot or DOT overall? So let's start from how about Flavio kick it off?
Oh, okay, I will try to keep it short. Yeah, look, we live in an interesting market since like 3 years. There's a lot of uncertainty in terms of rates, in terms of macroeconomical movements such as wars, elections in different countries. So there's a lot of movement and a lot of uncertainty. And in times of uncertainty, there's an adjustment in terms of risk levels you are willing to take, especially if we talk, in comparison to interest rates. So definitely Bitcoin has been ripping much more than anything else, right? Not only because it's the most liquid asset, but also in terms of adoption, as we heard before, it's the first entry point for a lot of institutional players. And this means liquidity moves, right? Money moves from altcoins to Bitcoin to stable coins. And we haven't really seen, I would say, like a big alt season yet. Of course, Solana, the last couple of years has been performing really well. I think this is also because they are able to capitalize on the vibe that we mentioned before, right? Which they're very strong in, and ship fast, right? I think sometimes if you wait too long to ship something, you not only lose the advantage, but also the momentum and the hype component of it. So that's why I think vibes is keep bringing it back up. But I think it's very important also in terms of how you do sales. Now, if we talk about confidence levels of any altcoins, it's always the same, right? So we cannot expect things just to happen if we wait for it. There needs to be some action. There needs to be people in the background doing the work, such as Wilhelm, that are actively putting in the work to bring in investors, institutionals, which are actively investing money to build infrastructure to get ready for it, right? Yes, it will take time, but we all know that if institutional players are investing money into infrastructure, into compliance, into education, then we know it will come, right? And it will hit hard. So I think on that level, that's very important. Confidence comes from people. So if I ever look into investing, maybe that's just me because I'm a vibe guy. I look at the people, right? Who is representing the project? Do I have confidence that they can deliver on what they promise? I think this is a very important aspect. And for that, I think we can definitely do much better in terms of Polkadot. to have more leadership and more people that are able to, show up, give updates, be nice, have a vibe, make friends. It's all about making friends. So yeah, I think there's a lot of balls in the air and a lot of motion coming. So this will be my assessment. No financial advice. You can give the financial advice, Luca, if you want to.
So, Wilhelm, what's your take on this?
I'll definitely keep to the trend of no financial advice on the table. No, I also think that in principle, I think the fate of sentiments around crypto is becoming more and more connected and into indeed what's happening in the world globally. It's just also the nature of what we expected, I think, for years for maturity in crypto markets. Right? It's gonna some of the trends and that we're seeing in crypto and the effect and the reactions from Trump's victory to war in the Middle East and tensions in Asia and war in Ukraine and all tend to correlate, as they say, the butterfly effect, right? Now there's war between Russia and Ukraine, but it affects starving people in Africa because the two countries has the biggest exports of wheat, and suddenly wheat prices matters as much as oil and gold. And that connects to the so-called narrative of Bitcoin being digital gold, and then to the need of narrative from the Polkadot side. So I always like to say we can look at how the world shapes, and we need to modify a lot of how we approach it. And naturally, again, no financial advice, even if it's to other parties. But I think that the biggest, or at least one of the important challenges that is on our table, what we can change, is primarily to come with a strong, consistent narrative that is attractive, that is competitive, that is strong, and it's literally within our hands to shape it. And I think a lot of us in and around the ecosystem are doing it. We're doing it now as we're speaking, and I think it's that is in the main focus for it to put Polkadot in the forefront.
Polkadot already changed its narrative to GEM, to the Web3 cloud. How do you feel about it?
Well, as long as it's not changed to GEM coin, I'm gonna be very happy. I think that's the important part. One of the things, as I mentioned earlier, that I really appreciated always with Polkadot is consistency from the development side. Hardly seeing pivots. It would be good that we keep the same view for development as we do for branding. Branding is a very valuable thing for any organization. It brings with it your face. It carried on the waves of vibes as well, if already using that in, and it will be a shame if we throw a highly valued brand for an important technological step. So I would indeed keep DOT. I don't want to do a Donald Trump impression, but making that great again. And but I do think that is something that should be at the forefront for ourselves. Keep for a strong branding that is consistent.
Yeah, keep on it. So, Lucas, how about share your perspective on this?
So, as everyone said it, I'll do it boringly enough as well. No financial advice. Now, at the moment, I'd rather look at it from a top-down perspective. I think where the market currently is, to say it bluntly, my personal opinion, the Web3 vision doesn't matter or attract investors at all. So if you look where the money flows, and it goes mainly into BTC, there is no BTC vision from an idealistic standpoint of what it has been. We are at the point, if you remember the days in 2017 with the block debate between the large blocker, the small blocker, the UTFO, there were huge discussions, strong community feelings. Different groups actually didn't talk to each other because someone thought it's replacing the financial system. The other ones were like, you have absolutely no idea. We should work together with the financial system. And it was highly, highly political. Most of these people don't care about their views they had because price goes up. So in the end, we see that ideology is not the requested thing where money goes at the moment, just to say it bluntly. This is why I'm rather looking at it from an asset allocation perspective, where all the people that randomly bought the Bitcoin ETF when it came out, or they got it sold by a relationship manager, they're currently up. So they are in profits on their portfolio. Now, all these investors only hold the Bitcoin ETF. So sooner or later, it's a very rational decision to say, all right, I put 1% of my portfolio in a cryptocurrency. And they call their relationship manager and they're like, hey, I'm 50% up on this position. How can I diversify that asset? Then most likely they will say Ethereum. Why? It has the longest track record of the Bitcoin, has the ETF out as well. And this is where it starts. It starts the diversification of where they're already in. And with that, the next step is the very logical consequence that you want to diversify your exposure. This is what Wilhelm mentioned, that once you play the infrastructure layer, be it for applications, for having a decentralized compute globally, then you start diversifying your investments. So if you already are invested in Ethereum, for example, then you also want to have an allocation in Polkadot. Mm-hmm. So you are diversifying your long-term bet on which infrastructure play is going to win. So you need to have the largest ones in. And they all have slightly different capabilities. And this is still what we see also in the Polkadot ecosystem. I think what we're really good at is the tech. And what we're really bad at is explaining what the tech actually can do, because we're saying it always too complicated. Mm-hmm. So we need to keep it much, much simpler and focus on getting the largest application on, that we can show the growth and the possibilities of what's already there, so that also the broader market understands the capabilities of this technology.
Maybe if I can add on something, I'm edging too. I think what's important to understand is, with institutional players and traditional money coming into the market, there is a different way how they perceive investment opportunities. So if you look at 2017 or even earlier in crypto, we were investing into the narrative, into we want to change the world, we want to have this idealistic vision of Web3, and everyone is going to be running on somewhere and there's like flowers and whatever, right? But now now you have institutional capital coming in, and they have a mandate, and the mandate is to make profit, and they need to have positive returns to their investors. So they no longer want to buy a vision, they want to buy a business. They invest into a business. So we need to start running, ecosystems like a business. So you have budgeting, you have leadership, you have revenues, you have business cases. So I feel like this is a big change that's happening. Some of the ecosystems that have started like this and have maybe been a bit more centralized have done this for many years and have been very successful. If you try to decentralize everything for this Web3 narrative, you're just going to be behind, and you're not going to be able to fit into this scheme, right? Into this investment view. So I think it's important to understand we're not a charity. We're Web3. We're building businesses, business cases that should be sustainable long term. We are at the high edge of technology and breaking things and building new things and doing improvements. But never forget, everything costs something. There needs to be funding. And if you want new investors in, just sell them a business and not this ideological dream, because this is not 2017 anymore.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for the informative sharing, and keep it in mind, these are not financial advice. Okay, last but not least, I still want to touch on this topic because Wilhelm and Luca all mentioned about branding, and we should let people know about Polkadot. But there's a phenomenon that people Polkadot are talk inwardly, communicate inwardly, and the internal feels confidence, and but the outside of Polkadot, they feels very quiet, and they keep muted. So what do you guys think about how to break out the echo chamber of Polkadot? Flavio, how about you kick it off again?
My favorite topic. Yeah, it's definitely a problem, right? I mean, if you just keep patting yourself on the back about how good a job you're doing with your friends, it's kind of fun, not gonna lie, but it's not gonna help you much. What's important is being humble. I feel like just because you are technically skilled, it doesn't mean that you need to be cocky. Being humble and helping people and being interested in how other people are or other ecosystems are approaching certain similar problems that we also have. Maybe even working together, because in the end, again, it's just people. Right? If you're being nice, it can go a long way. If you're not nice, then it becomes a topic of pride and principle, which, in my opinion, has no place in building a business. So it's about being inclusive, talking to people, giving compliments to your competitors in a sense as well, because not everything someone else is doing is bad, and we can learn from everyone, and we should work with everyone and be very open and not too proud, but just about the right amount. I guess that's for me like the most important part. I think it's the easiest way to change. It's a cultural aspect, and then it's, as we mentioned in the beginning, Luca said, distribution is key. If we don't have distribution, we will never leave this echo chamber. And if we don't open it up, then it just stays an echo chamber. And we don't want that.
Yeah, it is true. It's a culture. So, Wilhelm, what's your take on this?
Well, for me, it brings me back to my previous shop, running a HFT-driven asset manager. And there we had our trading desk. And the trading desk was filled with a lot of people that if you would put them in front of a crowd, they would not be able to speak a word, but they'll speak very confidently inside their own chamber, their own environment, the places that they feel confirmation, easier to engage in. And I think that if you're looking at a very dev-focused culture, then you will naturally see a similar kind of relation. And in that way, to explain that brilliant stuff that they're building to the world carries a different kind of talent, a different kind of vibe. Actually, very much to it. And in that parties again, like Polymac, like ourselves at 265 Dots, are all engineered for talking to people, to convey messages, to take complex messages and make them simple. Just like any transaction, you want it to be simple. Just like every message, you want it to hit immediately in one liner and not in 50 pages of code. So I think that in that extent, we can try to also recognize that in greater parts, elements of our ecosystem should focus on what they're doing and do it well and continue in that, and attract talents like we have here to be able to expand and be a strong voice for the ecosystem to the world. And lastly, in actually bringing for, and pardon again my a bit more brute way to look at it, get other institutions to speak for us. I always found that the best voice out there is your client's confidence in you speaking to others, rather than you speaking about yourself. As Flavio said, humility carries a very long way. And when your clients, when your investors, when your relations talk about you more and more and more and more, it will do its own job. To a great degree, this is Bitcoin's success. It's not the marketing team. It's literally the everyone talking due to their own experience in and around the engagement with Bitcoin, whether it's be a large size or small size block debates around it. But I'm not going to carry us back in memory lane.
Yeah, keep talking about people, what is Polkadot, and keep it a simple word, as simple as possible. So Luca.
Yeah, I think I can agree a lot on the points mentioned. I think we can keep it very, very simple. The confidence internally is high for a reason, because we have the best specialists on the tech side that know what they're doing. We can see the stuff that is ongoing. We can also see the roadmap of the things that are coming and the possibilities it enables us. And the reason why the external people, so to call it, are not hyped is very simple, because there's a major miscommunication. Polkadot is very leading on the tech front, but we cannot expect someone that is stellar at delivering applications or being a developer or being perfect in building the Polkadot SDK further or currently building a Jam client, we cannot expect the person to be perfect at everything. And it requires a complete different set of skills, not only to talk to institutions or the right traditional investors, but you also need to understand how you approach them. You need to build long-term relationships with them. You need to know what they actually require. And you cannot just preach to the world that they should buy you, because there has to be a reason, they need to be allowed, there are certain mandates, and there has to be an entire case that makes sense for them as well. So we need people that understand the other party, that can basically condense, or if you want, that can translate of what we have internally to the outside parties to make them understand why we do have that high confidence and enable them use cases to monetize it.
Yeah, good advice. But there's a long way to go, because the vibe of Polkadot is more about tech. You know, I remember Gavin visited Hangzhou, and a lot of people want to see Gavin, and they don't know what they're talking about, and but they want to let people know that they visited this meeting, attended this meeting, so they were trying so hard to take a picture, and they don't know what they're talking about. But at least they want to know that I took a picture with Gavin. He's a super person. So I think there's a lot of work to do. There's people constantly ask me, why not Gavin not talk about tech? How about talk about something about marketing? I told them there's no way.
You know, Gavin can also not do everything, right? And I mean, this is why in the business you have different positions, and you find the best skilled person for this position. The reason why you don't hear about institutional adoption is because the talks are not done publicly. They are behind closed doors, and it's a long process, but you will see the results, right? And then once the results hit, then everyone will be happy again. And, you know, it's important. Technology is it's the industry. It's our core infrastructure that we're selling. But it's delusional to think just because you build something, people will use it. And as history has told us, you know, price action attracts users, and not the other way around. Because in the end, crypto is still very much just gambling, right? And we want to make it more mature, and we want to bring opportunities that feel more like, you know, investing into long-term businesses. But it's a process. You need to trust the process.
Yeah, very looking forward to the Jam and the Polkadot Hub launch, and there are gonna be more developers join in, and there are gonna be more apps that are close to normal users instead of developers.
Okay. We're all waiting for that.
Yeah. So time limited. There was tons of knowledge from our broadcast, and I think people need time to sink in. And very happy, and thank you for everyone for the insightful sharing today. And I hope that all the listeners today can follow Polemic, follow Flavia, Luca, and can follow Wilhelm as well, and keep an eye on their updates, and you will not regret to do it. And thank you, and I think that's all for today, and thank you. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristen.
Thank you for having us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.